everybody, welcome to Krown Countdown. My name's Ryan Sullivan, his name's Andrew Wadden.
Ryan, national semifinals went down over this past weekend. We had the Mitchell Bowl, we had the Uteck Bowl, so I think we should play a little game here. You down for it?
I'm down.
All right, so give me a word that rhymes with Uteck.
Uteck. Uteck?
Yeah. Never mind, let's just get to the highlights. The Canada West champion Manitoba Bisons were in tough in this year's Uteck Bowl. Not only did they have to face off against a team as strong as the Montreal Carabins, they also had to face off on the Carabins' home turf in front of a fan base that might be the most passionate in the entire CIS. Take all of those factors and then measure in this. No team has ever won 4 games on the road en route to a Vanier Cup title. That's a tough task to measure up to, but as we've seen throughout this entire postseason, never count out the herd.
So to the Belle Province we go. It was a packed house in Montreal with Carabins head coach Danny Machocha looking for his first Vanier appearance, while Bison's head coach Brian Doby is looking for his second Vanier title. But this was not the start that Doby wanted.
Cousineau has time. He's looking for the home run to Davidson, and it's complete. Mikhail Davidson, the leading receiver of the Carabins. Touchdown, Montreal.
Mikhail Davidson goes 89 yards to the house party, and just like the Hardy final a week ago, the Bisons let a huge opening play get them down early. But the herd would respond. Matt Sawyer hauls in this one right on the sideline. The Stripes confirm the score. Next drive for MTL. Gabriel Cousineau with the swing pass to Sean Thomas Erlington. STE finds some room on the sideline. That's a 32-yard gain, and it leads to this 14-yard grab from Davidson. That's his second major of the day. We're not even through the first cue yet. Second quarter, Cousineau gets acquainted with that dreaded Bison secondary. Mitchell Harrison with the pick. That leads to this bomb from Jordan Yance to Sawyer, the modern-day Warrior with his second touche of the game. And he lets the Montreal sideline know about it. Maybe not the best idea, though, as Cousineau goes to work, hits Philip Anchille for a 32-yard gain and a first down. Then Davidson for 25 yards and a first down. And then STE hauls in this one, and you got it. That's another first down. 3 consecutive passes for a gain of 83 yards. Cousineau then caps off the drive, calling his own number. Machocha gives a little cha-cha. MTL takes a 13-point lead. But the herd wouldn't back down. Yance fires over the middle. Zachary Gert knows he's going to take a lick, holds on to the ball. It's a little shaken up, but the rookie walks off on his own and would remain in the game. Like his rookie receiver, Jordan Yance is tough. Scrambles his way into the end zone, and we go into the poutine break with the herd trailing now by just 6. Second half, Carabins pull off a little trickery, fake the punt, and get the first down. But then this happens. Davidson makes the grab. Jonathan Jones rips at the pigskin. Davidson thinks he's down, but the Stripes see it the other way. They call it a turnover. Take another look at it. Davidson clearly didn't hit the ground. What a heads-up play there by Jones. And Machocha, well, he's not doing the cha-cha now, but the herd would do nothing with the freebie. Next series for the Carabins, Cousineau goes airborne for Anchille, and you believe that grab. The big man outstretches to haul in the leather, but the Bison's D would come up big, and the Carabins get nothing from it. So to the fourth we go. On 3rd and 1, Yance goes end zone for Nick Dembski. What looks like an obvious pass interference gets called as a Carabins offside. So Manitoba only musters a 3-banger out of it. Carabins lead cut to 5. Manitoba D would earn their offense another shot, but Carabins punter Felix Menard-Briere would make sure it wouldn't be easy for the herd to rumble downfield. He boots this one 60 yards, leaving Yance and company to start from their own 14-yard line. Who says punters aren't important? So Yance goes to work, scrambling out of the pocket. He hits Dustin Peterson for 17 yards, then to Sawyer for a 31-yard pickup. Back to Peterson, who picks up another first down. Yance then hits Peterson again. That's 5 straight completions, taking Manitoba from its own 14 to the Montreal 12. So Doby calls a timeout to talk things over with his QB. So on 2nd and 10 with the game on the line.
On 2nd and 10, Yance being chased by Cody, and he's sacked by the free safety. The ball is loose. The Carabins recover, and Montreal is going to the Vanier Cup.
The Carabins D, like they've done all season long, proved to be the difference in this one. Montreal wins its first ever Uteck Bowl and advance to the Vanier Cup, where they'll get a shot to win it all in front of their hometown. Cousineau and Yance put in unreal performances on the day, while both teams had 3 different receivers hauling 80 yards or more. That game, ladies and gentlemen, is a perfect example of why we love CIS football. Outstanding performance by both sides. Congrats to Montreal, but also to Manitoba, who proved to be a worthy opponent in this one.
One team has been to the show twice and won once in the past half-decade, while the other is the absolute, undeniable, factual, and technical best team in the country. Seriously, Mount Allison went undefeated in 2014. Although, as the 2009 New England Patriots will tell you, perfection doesn't mean jack shh. Mounties Marauders, the only undefeated team in the CIS Mount Allison in a tough and chilly Ron Joyce Stadium. On the very first play of the game for Max, bad news strikes. Starting running back Chris Pizzetta goes down, and he is in major pain. He'd be down for some time and would not return to the game, plunking both knees on the ground. However, on the very next play, Isaiah Mells picks up 27 yards on the carry. The run game wounded but not done. The drive would result in a Tyler Crapina field goal attempt, and Mr. Automatic gets blocked. The league all-time leader for total FGs gets his efforts smacked down. It would stay 0-0 till late in the first when Crapina makes up for the block boot, 7-0 Mac after 1 Q. Mount A responds to start the second, though, as Brandon Lay hits Josh Blanchard, and he finds a hole, some tremendous blocks down the left side, and lets hit the slopes in the end zone. The Mounties trail by 3 halfway through this second Q, and they are rolling. More bad news for Max soon after, though, as Josh Vanderweerd goes down after a shot to the head. He'd be down in obvious pain for some time as well. 2 key losses for the Mac offense, and we're not even at halftime. Ferguson right back at it, though. He hits Danny Peterman, and the Urban Sombrero gets his cage ripped. Flags fly on the face mask, and it would result in this. Wayne Moore in his fill-in role punches it in. It results in a major and a big hug from Chris Pizzetta back at the sidelines. Mac leading 19-7. Mount A treads water, though, as they bake the field goal. They get enough for the first down and then some. Mounties moving the chains with a little trickery. It's very nice, and the sideline is fired up. From inside the red zone, though, Lay can't connect with his man off the play action. He then sets back, tosses up a Binford 5000 that easily smacked down a brutal ball, and they'd settle for just 3 points. While the offense wasn't getting it done, the defense was at least making highlights late. Danny Vandervoort gets suplexed down on the sideline. The old diesel jackknife, if you will, taking you back to 90s references. After another Tyler Crapina triple, Brandon Lay with one last chance, no. Picked off in the end zone. McMaster can celebrate. They win the Mitchell Bowl 24-12 and will go on to the Vanier Cup for the 3rd time in 4 years. The Mac defense was something to behold on this day. 9 sacks, 1 pick, and they kept the Mount A offense to just 156 yards. They will have their hands full this weekend, though, in the 50th Vanier Cup against the Montreal Carabins.
All right, some fantastic action between the Mitchell Bowl and the Uteck Bowl there, Ryan. So now we're all set. Vanier Cup, 50th edition, so I have an idea. Let's put a little wager on it. What do you say we put a Mackenzie King on it?
A who?
A redback.
I don't think Ottawa's playing in this game.
50. Never mind. Let's just get to Jim Mullen in the 1989 Vanier Cup. We're going to work out this little wager between the two of us here. You're watching Krown Countdown U.
Red Blacks. That's who he plays for.
It's $50, buddy.
Here's where you can catch the 50th edition of the Vanier Cup on your television this weekend.
The wind, the rain, and the snow was a thing of the past as the Saskatchewan Huskies and Western Mustangs moved their act indoors to Skydome for the 1989 Vanier Cup.
Played in Toronto Skydome was the 25th Vanier Cup between the Western Ontario Mustangs and the Saskatchewan Huskies. Mustangs coach Larry Hoyler looking for his first Vanier. This is the first of 9 appearances by Huskies coach Brian Torres. This game was all about the Western rushing attack, starting with Chris Gaffney and this 1-yard plunge. Huskies in for a fight. Dan Farthing's ready for one. Amazing run. Deeks, dangles, scores from 14 yards out to put Saskatchewan on the board. Western's offense running rampant. Chris Gaffney's going to find Tyrone Williams. Williams out at the 1-yard line, and Gaffney to cap off another drive, this time from 4 yards out. Western up again. Huskies kicker Brian Grouper converts a field goal to keep the game competitive. That is, until the third quarter. Huskies bringing the house, but on a play action, Gaffney airmails to Tyrone Williams, puts Western on top by 18, and that would ice the game. The Mustangs' rushing attack, led by Dwayne Ford, would add another TD on the ground. Mustangs win 35-10. Tyrone Williams is the MVP of this game and would go on to become the first player to win a Vanier Cup, Grey Cup, and Super Bowl. I want to see his trophy case.
Hey, welcome back to Krown Countdown U. It's time again for the Roundtable portion. We welcome in Jim Mullen on the far side, Gord Randall in the middle, and we have live via Skype an all-around beauty when it comes to CIS, everything. Look at that jacket. I can't even focus, that thing's so gorgeous. His name is Jesse Lumsden, and he joins us live. We're going to start things out with the Uteck, Montreal winning at home 29-26 over Manitoba, and we're going to start with Jim.
Well, I was very impressed with the game. It was thoroughly entertaining. I thought that Manitoba showed a whole lot of fight. I thought that at times Manitoba was not doing the things that got them there through the playoffs or even through that last game of the regular season against Calgary. They didn't manage the ball particularly well. They left it on the turf a few times, and surprisingly, they were outplayed on special teams. I think there was a key fake punt in the third quarter that Montreal ran against them that may have been something that shifted momentum in that game that Manitoba wasn't accustomed to seeing during the course of their good run. So full props to Montreal, a physically dominating team, and there is no reason to think that they're not going to take that momentum from their win against the Bisons into Molson Stadium and come out with the 50th Vanier Cup.
It's hard to not to look at the way things shape up for the Montreal Carabins this year and think that things aren't kind of falling into place for them. You alluded to the fact that Manitoba didn't do the things that they had been winning on as well this week, and one of those things was making the big play on defense. And they were credited, I think, with 3 interceptions by the end of the day, although one of those was on a Hail Mary at the end of the half, was fairly inconsequential. But they didn't turn them into big plays on defense or special teams, as you mentioned earlier, Jim. And I think that that's what they really had thrived on throughout these playoffs, and they were kind of lacking that. On the Montreal side of the ball, they did exactly as we'd laid out last week, needed to be their blueprint for victory. They got ahead early, they kept the game tight all the way through, and they let their advantage in both trenches really carry them through this game. They were able to run the ball pretty well, and their defensive front really overwhelmed the Manitoba offensive line, and I think that was one of the big tilting factors as well. Byron Archambault with another big game leading that unit.
Jesse, up to you.
Yeah, Archibald, he's a standout player for sure, and definitely caused some problems for Yance in that offensive line. And him and Keenan LaFrance butt head a couple times. But in terms of Montreal's path, there's no doubt that they're going to be banged up a little bit going into next week, coming off of a very, very difficult, long win against Laval and then a very physical game against Manitoba. I was really impressed with Manitoba and how they did go in the first half, blow for blow, toe-to-toe, essentially. But it was really, I think, the first half, the big game jitters that we saw from the Manitoba secondary that, Davidson was able to sneak in behind coverage, and normally you'd see hip-to-hip or really a nice tight zone from that Manitoba defense.
Couple more things that we talked about, the lack of big plays from Manitoba, and their big play guy, Nick Dembski, came up a little bit wanting again this week, which, Jim, we were talking off the air, and makes you question whether he's 100% healthy like we did with Mercer Timmis at the end of his season. Gutsy effort from Jordan Yance and that senior-laden squad with the Manitoba Bisons, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Montreal can do this upcoming week. Gabby Cousineau seems to be firing on all cylinders right now. I mean, he put up lots of yardage against that Manitoba secondary that had really been ball hawks previously.
And why don't we touch on, and you alluded to it just a moment ago, but how big is the home field advantage when it comes to, I know they're playing over at McGill, but nonetheless, it is pretty much a home game for the Montreal Carabin. How much is that going to play a role?
Well, I got to believe it's going to play a big role. I mean, there's lots of tickets still available to be had, or at least there were at the time they won that game. And I mean, being in the same city makes it basically a home game for them. Although don't discount the fact that it's a fairly easy drive from Hamilton up there as well. So I would expect to see a lot of maroon-clad McMaster supporters up there. Maybe Mr. Lumsden would be one of them.
Throw it back just for a second to the bowl game. I'm wondering, and it's just the luck of the draw with the bowl game because they set these things up well in advance, but I wonder how different of a game we would have had between Montreal and Manitoba if that was played in front of 8,000 people at IGF in Winnipeg. I'm not sure if it would have been that different, but you know, you got to give the home side 7 points in these games. It's so hard to win on the road in these national bowl games.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a fundamentally different game, but a few plays here and there turns that completely around in what turned into a 3-point game after that late safety at the end, right?
Yeah, I think the one thing we can agree on is that it will be in a very passionate market, and this is nothing but good news for the 50th Vanier Cup and the CAS. Now let's switch things over to the Mitchell before we get to the actual Vanier itself. McMaster winning 24-12 over the AUS champ Mount Allison Mounties, and we're going to start things out with Jesse Lumsden.
In terms of the game, having watched both of them in a row, I'm very interested to see how Montreal and Mac are going to match up. But I think Mac's defense did what it did all year long, and that's dominate, and that's run around like a bunch of maniacs, making tackles, making big plays, and the offense sort of squeaking by and doing some things, getting a couple things going here and there, but nothing overly dynamic. I think Ferguson had 154 yards passing, and 100 of those yards were one receiver. Big step up by Wayne Moore for taking the entire load as opposed to where he would be splitting the carries with Pizzetta, and it's real unfortunate to see him go down like that. But it was Mac's defense that really won them that game.
Gord.
And the game plan was simple for the McMaster Marauders. Right from the very beginning, they decided, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, that they were going to challenge the Mount Allison Mounties to stand up to them. And frankly, they didn't. Their offensive line was completely overwhelmed all day, although I will add offensive line and running backs because that's part of pass protection. Hard to be a great pass protector when you're 5'6" and 150 pounds. But their pass protection just was not up to snuff. Mac brought blitz. I counted 2 out of every 3 plays. Mac was bringing some sort of blitz on their defensive front, and it was just too much. Brandon Lay, the poor guy, took an absolute beating from beginning to end in this game. And that was, other than that, like, in every other facet of the game, the Mount Allison Mounties held up to the McMaster Marauders, but it was just on that offensive line where they came up a little bit wanting. On the McMaster side, it was interesting. I said at the half that I thought that they needed to get Danny Vandervoort more involved, and next thing I know, I find out he's their leading receiver by a mile, and it felt like he was unnoticeable. So the passing attack was kind of not really there for the McMaster Marauders. On the run, on the ground, Wayne Moore, like Jesse said, did a great job picking up for Chris Pizzetta, and I wouldn't rule out that Chris Pizzetta turns into a real powerful rallying cry for these McMaster guys, a guy who's already come back from 1 or 2 ACL surgeries on his other knee, and that looked like either an ACL or meniscus the way he went down, basically just planting on the field and crumpling.
I think we're not giving the Mount Allison Mounties enough credit in this game, at least on the defensive side of the ball, because I thought in terms of the physicality that they brought after they adapted to the speed of the game. You could tell that they were a bit in quicksand at the start of the game through the first half of the first quarter. Once they adapted to the speed of the game, they were laying the lumber out there. I was really impressed. Maybe that extra week off really helped them going into the game against Mac. But man, I think that this is a team, and we've talked about the AUS all through the course of the year, being the weak sister out of the 4 conferences. But I think this team in particular is one who could at least physically compete, maybe with that offensive line a little out of the mix right now, but physically compete within the middle tier of most conferences, just kind of under the top 2 or top 3 in each of the conferences across the country, maybe 4th in the OUA.
But Mount A, like you say, they put up a good fight this year. Will they be as effective next year?
Well, they don't lose much, so I mean that's one plus, and they do have the balance of putting their team together throughout the course of the AUS season on that on that home field that isn't a fast track. They've always got that advantage at Macaulay Field.
And success breeds success. They've now been on the national stage 2 years in a row. People are starting to hear about Mount Allison as they come out of high school.
All right, guys, let's go to the Vanier Cup here. We got McMaster, we got Montreal. Jesse, I'm going to start with you. And let's start with McMaster especially, because I want to get your opinion here. They obviously underwent some huge injuries in the last game. Will this play a big role in the Vanier?
It depends how severe those injuries are. I mean, now it's the time where guys are going to start freezing things and taking a couple extra Advil and doing what they need to do. It's the Vanier Cup, and you're going to be fired up and playing at the best of your ability, no matter how badly you are banged up. It's 4 more quarters of football. I am curious to see what happens with Pizzetta and how bad that knee was. You guys mentioned it was an interesting how he hit the turf. It wasn't a big collision, so it does make me wonder if it's a serious ligament damage. But McMaster needs to come in with a game plan, a simple game plan that they're going to execute at a high level. Nothing overly complicated. You need to get Marshall Ferguson comfortable and making some high percentage completion passes early, and then you can start spreading the ball around a little bit. Greg Knox is going to continue to do what he does, and that's just create mayhem on the football field, bringing just about everybody and their brother, every second or third play, like we talked about. That saw blitz, that Sam Will blitz is very effective because they have very, very fast outside linebackers.
Jim?
I think with Davidson and Sibasu as receivers, that sort of speed can be a great counterbalance to the type of blitz packages that McMaster can throw at Montreal. My big question, though, is with Marshall Ferguson. We saw what Jordan Yance did against Montreal in terms of moving the pocket with his ability to throw. I haven't seen that out of Marshall Ferguson throughout the course of this year. He likes to sit back. They like to use him in the pocket. I'm not sure if you can redesign an offense at this particular stage. I wonder if he's going to be a sitting duck back there, considering what Montreal can bring.
Yeah, and I would actually go in a little bit different direction than what Jesse was advocating, and I think that I would really take the wheels off with Marshall Ferguson. We saw that Yance was able to force some stuff downfield against this Montreal defense with varying degrees of success. I think you really need to take the wheels off and pull everything out with this guy and have him gun the ball down the field, which we've seen him do in the past in OUA conference play for sure.
Is he going to get the time, though? And is he going to have to move around and get out of his comfort zone? Jesse's talking about a comfort zone, but I think he's going to have to get out of his comfort zone to get some success.
Well, and that's the big question. We're not talking about a guy who's just a sitting duck here, though. Marshall Ferguson can move if he needs to. It's just whether they are willing to put in the scheming to take advantage of that. Another thing that's going to be able to keep that pass rush off his back is if they can establish the run a little bit more to the extent that to more of an extent than Manitoba did this week with Wayne Moore coming out of the backfield. And I think ball security in particular for Wayne Moore is going to have to be a big issue. But make no mistake, it's not a big step down from Wayne Moore to Chris Pizzetta.
All right, Jesse, we're going to start with you. Quick hits, 30 seconds or less. And I want a prediction as well. What do you think should be coming out of CIS news-wise right now? And again, I want that Vanier prediction.
So we're doing the Vanier prediction and CIS news?
Serve it all up on one big hot platter with that jacket.
As an impartial analyst, I'm picking Mac because I'm Mac alum. I played there. I love Mac, and go Mac go.
So unbiased. Appreciate that.
The news, actually, the one thing that just going back a couple, what we touched on, Mount Allison, recruiting. They're guaranteeing more or less now that they're going to bowl games. That's a huge recruiting tool for these guys because they're beating everybody up in the AUS. You go to Mount Allison, you're getting a ticket to a bowl game. That's going to be huge for those guys. And I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the West with the coaches.
Jim?
I'm picking Montreal over Mac, 33-16. And I think I'm being conservative in that estimate. I think this is Montreal's game to win, especially with the game at not their home field, just on the other side of the mountain. The quick hit, it's simple. There's going to be lots of talk about interlock around Vanier Cup week. There's a story that came out in Quebec about possible interlock just between Quebec and Ontario. I think the West wants in on this. It would be a huge mistake not to include Canada West teams in a national interlock.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's a Quebec team in Quebec. We're going to set the over-under for the Rouge count at 5. What are you taking?
For safety count, I'd probably say 3.
Okay, all right, Gord.
Funnily enough, I think Mount Allison won the safety count this
did.
past week,
True enough.
as they took at least 3 in that game. My quick hit, I want to give a shout out to the crews that did both games for Sportsnet. Rash Madani did a top-notch job for the Montreal-Manitoba game, and great to hear the dulcet tones of Tim McAuliffe calling college football again. If you're at home in the Montreal area this weekend, highly recommend you check out the game. Vanier Cup's a great atmosphere, despite the fact that we may or may not even have a halftime show. The actual football game is going to be top-notch. As for my pick this week, Jim kind of took the thunder out of my sails, and sorry to Mr. Marauder over there, but I'm going to be picking the Montreal Carabins.
You're only picking them because you know that helmet fits.
Yeah, well, we saw how it looked on you last week. So
yeah, I'm still feeling that.
Not in their home stadium, as we've mentioned, but in their hometown, the Montreal Carabins have a significant advantage in this game. And to be honest, I think they're the better team through and through to begin with, which is hard to say for a team in the Greater Toronto area that has pulled a couple national championship recruiting classes. But I think that the Montreal Carabins will prove that they are the tougher, rough and tumble team, and they'll soften them up with the run and then open it up in the air. And I think that the big key actually is going to be the Montreal offensive line holding up that constant blitzing from the MAC defense, and I think they're capable of doing it.
Oddly enough, this is not the first time I've worn this MAC helmet on this show before, but just to play devil's advocate and make better friends with Jesse Lumsden, I'm going to go with the Marauders in this game. If they put together a perfect game and the defense shows up, they've got a pretty good darn chance, I think.
Well, he's a scary-looking guy, too, in that what I have to assume is the new uniform of the Canadian Bobsled Association.
We got Batman and Commissioner Gordon here on the broadcast. It's pretty awesome.
Nice.
There we go. The 50th Vanier Cup is on tap, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy that game, and make sure to tune in next week. Thank you so much, Jesse Lumsden, for joining us. Jim Mullen on the far side, Gord Randall in the middle. For Andrew Wadden earlier in the show, I'm Ryan Sullivan. Thanks again for joining us. Enjoy the heck out of that game, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching Krown Countdown U. Now, let's get out to the game.